The alphabet murders, also known as the double initial murders, are an unsolved series of child murders which occurred between 1971 and 1973 in Rochester, New York. Each victim was around the same age, around 10 or 11 years old. All had been abducted from Rochester, sexually assaulted and strangled. And these girls were not chosen at random. They were targeted for the simple reason that each of their first and last names had the same initials, CC, WW, and MM. Furthermore, each of their bodies was discovered in a town with the same initials, Churchville, Webster, and Macedon. The press dubbed them the alphabet murders. First victim, Carmen Colón. At 4:20 p.m. on the 16th of November, 1971, a 10-year-old Puerto Rican child named Carmen Colón disappeared while returning home from an errand in Rochester, New York. According to eyewitnesses, Colón entered the pharmacy her grandmother had instructed her to visit on West Main Street, but left the store upon learning the prescription she had been instructed to collect had not been processed. Informing the store owner, Jack Corbin, "I got to go. I got to go." She was then observed entering a car parked close to the pharmacy. Colón was reported missing to the Rochester Police Department at 7:50 p.m., approximately 50 minutes after Colón exited the pharmacy. Scores of motorists driving along Interstate 490 observed the child, naked from the waist down, running from a reversing vehicle believed to be a dark-colored Ford Pinto hatchback, frantically waving her arms and shouting in an attempt to flag down a passing vehicle. At least one of these witnesses observed Colón being submissively led back to this vehicle by her abductor. 2 days later, 2 teenage boys discovered Colón's partially nude body in a gully not far from Interstate 490 and close to the village of Churchville. This location was approximately 12 miles from where Colón had last been seen alive. Her coat was discovered in a culvert some 300 feet from her body. Her trousers were later discovered on the 30th of November, close to the service road near where numerous motorists had observed her attempting to escape her abductor. An autopsy revealed that, in addition to having been raped, the child had suffered a fracture to her skull and one of her vertebrae before she had been manually strangled to death. Furthermore, her body had been extensively scratched by fingernails. Both the murder of Colón and the fact no individual who had observed the child attempting to flee from her abductor alongside Interstate 490 had attempted to offer her any assistance generated intense public outrage. 2 New York newspapers, the Times-Union and the Democrat and Chronicle, initially offered a combined reward of $2,500 for information leading to the arrest and conviction of her murderer, and all information each publication received was relayed to police. Numerous local businesses and residents added private donations to the reward fund, gradually leading the sum to exceed $6,000. Although police interrogated several suspects in the months following Colón's murder, including her uncle, no individual was charged with her murder, and by the 21st of December, the number of investigators assigned to the case on a full-time basis was decreased to 3. In early 1972, 5 large billboards were erected along major highways in Rochester. Each featured a picture of Carmen Colón next to the headline, "Do you know who killed Carmen Colón?" The Rochester Outdoor Advertising Company offered free use of the billboards for a month. The billboards each offered a $6,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of Colón's killer or killers, and displayed a hotline number and postal address. The billboards had all been erected the previous November to encourage the public to provide information anonymously. While the tactic produced a few new leads, all were inconclusive. Wanda Walkowicz's second murder. 17 months later, it's the 2nd of April, 1973, around 5 p.m. The streets of Rochester's East Side are bustling with the quiet rhythm of a spring afternoon. Kids are playing, cars hum along, and one-year-old Wanda Walkowicz is on her way to the local delicatessen. Her mother, Joyce, sent her to pick up some groceries, a routine task for a girl known to be responsible and bright. Wanda walks into the deli, buys what she needs, and by 5:15 p.m., she's seen leaving, clutching a bag of groceries, heading down Conkey Avenue toward home. By 8 p.m., Joyce, her mother worried sick, calls the police. Walkowicz was reported missing. What follows is a desperate search that grips the city and a discovery that breaks its heart. Police immediately launched an intense search to locate Walkowicz. Almost 50 detectives searched several square miles of the terrain around her home, the delicatessen, and areas around the Genesee River where she had been known to play. These searches failed to locate the child, although several neighborhood residents recalled observing Walkowicz struggling to carry the bag of groceries, walking just north of Avenue B. 3 classmates specifically observed her bracing the bag against a fence so that she could improve her grip as a brown vehicle drove past her. The next morning, the 3rd of April, at 10:15 a.m., a police officer patrolling an access road near State Route 104 in Webster, 7 miles from Rochester, makes a grim discovery. Wanda's body lies at the base of a hillside. She's fully clothed, but the position of her body suggests she was thrown from a moving car, her small frame tumbling down the embankment. The autopsy paints a horrific picture. Wanda was sexually assaulted and strangled from behind, likely with a belt. Defensive wounds on her body show she fought back, bravely, against her attacker. Traces of semen and pubic hair are found, along with something peculiar, white cat fur on her clothing. The Walkowicz family didn't own a pet with fur like that. And there's another chilling detail. Wanda's body was redressed after her death, as if her killer wanted to leave her in a certain way. As had been the case with Carmen Colón, the police throw everything into the investigation. They set up an anonymous hotline, distribute flyers across Rochester, and offer a $10,000 reward for information leading to an arrest. Eyewitnesses come forward with critical clues. One person recalls seeing Wanda standing by the passenger door of a large brown vehicle, talking to the driver, just 0.2 of a mile from her home. Another witness reports seeing a man forcing a red-haired girl, matching Wanda's description, into a light-colored Dodge Dart on Conkey Avenue between 5:30 and 6 p.m. that evening. But the driver's face? No one gets a clear look. Despite these leads, the case hits a wall. The police dismiss any connection to another unsolved murder in Rochester, that of Carmen Colón, killed 17 months earlier. But one sheriff sergeant who worked on Carmen's case is reassigned to Wanda's task force, raising quiet speculation among investigators. Could there be a link? The public wonders, but the police stay tight-lipped. In September 1973, local television network WOKR announced plans to broadcast a televised reconstruction of Walkowicz's abduction and subsequent recovery of her body. This 30-minute episode was broadcast on the 21st of October, accompanied by public appeals for witnesses to contact authorities. Although this program resulted in the Rochester Police Department receiving over 200 calls from the public, no useful leads were gained. Case 3. Michelle Maenza was murdered. 7 months later, on the evening of the 26th of November, 1973, 11-year-old Michelle Maenza was reported missing by her mother, Carolyn, after she failed to return home from school. Subsequent investigations would determine Maenza was last seen by her classmates at approximately 3:20 p.m. walking alone en route to a shopping plaza located close to her school, with the intention of retrieving a purse her mother had left inside a store within the plaza earlier that day. Approximately 10 minutes later, a witness observed Maenza sitting in the passenger seat of a beige or tan vehicle traveling at high speed on Ackerman Street before turning onto Webster Avenue. According to this witness, the child had been weeping. At 5:30 p.m. on the 26th of November, a motorist observed a man standing by a large beige or tan vehicle with a flat tire, parked alongside Route 350 in the town of Walworth, holding a girl he strongly believed to be Michelle Maenza by the wrist. When this motorist had stopped to offer assistance, the individual had deliberately grabbed the girl and pushed her behind his back, also obscuring his license plate from the motorist's view, as he stared in his direction with such a menacing expression on his face that the motorist had felt compelled to drive away. At 10:30 a.m. on the 28th of November, Maenza's fully clothed body was discovered, lying face down in a ditch, alongside a rural road in Macedon, approximately 15 miles, 24 kilometers, from Rochester. Her autopsy revealed that in addition to receiving extensive blunt force trauma to her body, Maenza had been raped, then strangled to death from behind with a ligature, possibly a thin rope. Numerous strands of white cat fur were discovered upon her clothing, and leaf samples matching the foliage where her body was discovered were recovered from within one of her clenched hands, indicating she had likely been strangled to death at or near the location where she was found. Investigators were able to retrieve a partial palm print from her neck and traces of semen on her body and underwear. A forensic analysis of the semen samples determined she had been raped by one individual. An analysis of the contents of Maenza's stomach revealed traces of a hamburger and onions, which had been consumed approximately 1 hour before her murder, giving credence to earlier reports of a girl matching Maenza's description having been seen in the company of a Caucasian man with dark hair, aged between 25 and 35, approximately 6 foot 0 inch, 1.83 meter tall, and weighing 165 pound, 75 kilogram, both at a fast food restaurant in the town of Penfield at approximately 4:30 p.m. on the afternoon of her disappearance, and alongside Route 350 approximately 1 hour later. The savage murders of 3 innocent girls shattered the community, unleashing waves of fear and fury that gripped the headlines for months. After the brutal killing of Michelle Maenza, investigators revealed a chilling composite sketch of a man last seen with her, a face broadcast across every newspaper and television screen. A special hotline was launched, and a massive manhunt surged forward, fueled by promises of anonymity and a staggering reward. Tips poured in by the hundreds, yet the shadowy figure behind the killings remained just out of reach. Detectives interrogated more than 800 possible suspects in connection with the infamous Alphabet murders, but the true predator slipped through their grasp. The parallels between the victims were haunting, each a young girl from a struggling Catholic family, weighed down by loneliness, bullying, or school troubles, easy prey for a monster lurking in plain sight. Some investigators even pursued a sinister theory that the killer may have been someone connected to a social service agency, using insider knowledge to target the most vulnerable, earning their trust before leading them to their fate. In the haunting case of 10-year-old Carmen Colón, investigators quickly zeroed in on 2 chilling suspects: her uncle, Miguel Colón, and a drifter named James Barber. The first, Miguel Colón, drew suspicion almost immediately. Just days before Carmen's murder, he had purchased a car that eerily matched eyewitness descriptions of a vehicle seen reversing on the interstate the night she disappeared. When detectives searched his car, they discovered it had been meticulously scrubbed inside and out. Even the trunk gleamed unnaturally clean. The dealership that sold him the car later confirmed it had never been washed with cleaning chemicals before Miguel bought it. Then came a disturbing detail: one of Carmen's toys was found inside the vehicle. While relatives insisted that Carmen often rode with Miguel, the timing was impossible to ignore. And then, 4 days after Carmen's brutal murder, Miguel vanished. He fled Rochester, New York, and resurfaced in Puerto Rico. When investigators tracked him down, he reportedly tried to run again. Brought back to Rochester, he faced questioning, but he had no alibi. Still, without hard evidence placing him at the crime scene, police couldn't charge him. Years later, In 1991, Miguel Colón's story ended in tragedy when he took his own life. James Barber. Barber was known to have a history of mental illness. Witnesses said he had been wandering around the area where Carmen disappeared. Barber also had a warrant out for his arrest after he assaulted and raped a 5-year-old girl in Ohio. Shortly after Colón was murdered, Barber fled the country. Ultimately, no evidence was found to have convicted Barber. One individual considered a strong suspect in the Alphabet murders is a 5-year-old Rochester firefighter named Dennis Termini. Termini was a prolific serial offender known as the Garage Rapist, who is known to have committed a minimum of 14 rapes of teenage girls and young women between 1971 and 1973. He is also known to have owned a beige vehicle, similar in description to the vehicle observed by several eyewitnesses to the abductions. Moreover, he lived at an address on Bach Street, an address close to the area where Michelle Maenza was last seen alive. 5 weeks after the death of the final victim of the Alphabet murders, on the 1st of January, 1974, Termini attempted to abduct a teenage girl at gunpoint, although he fled the scene when the teenager refused to stop screaming. Shortly thereafter, he abducted another potential victim, although on this occasion he was pursued by the police, culminating in Termini committing suicide by shooting himself in the head. A subsequent forensic examination of Termini's vehicle did reveal traces of white cat fur on the upholstery. In January 2007, Termini's body was exhumed to obtain a DNA sample for comparison with the semen samples recovered from Walkowicz's body. The results of this test confirmed Termini was not responsible for her murder. However, no physical evidence retrieved from the bodies of Colón or Maenza exists for comparison with Termini's DNA. Another suspect in the Alphabet murders is serial killer Kenneth Bianchi, who at the time of the murders worked as an ice cream vendor in Rochester. He is known to have worked at locations close to the first 2 murder scenes. Bianchi had relocated from Rochester to Los Angeles in January 1976. Between 1977 and 1978, he and his cousin, Angelo Buono, Jr., committed the Hillside Strangler murders of 10 girls and young women between the ages of 12 and 28. Bianchi was never charged with the Alphabet murders and has vehemently denied any culpability in the homicides. He has repeatedly attempted to have investigators officially clear him of suspicion. However, while residing in Rochester, he is known to have driven a vehicle of the same color and model as a vehicle seen near one of the abduction sites. In April 2011, a 7-year-old named Joseph Naso was arrested in Reno, Nevada, for the murders of 4 women in California, committed between 1977 and 1994, all of whom are believed to have been prostitutes, and each of whose surname began with the same letter as that of her first name. Naso was a New York native who had lived in Rochester during the early 1972 and who is known to have regularly traveled between New York and California. Initially described by authorities as a person of interest in the Alphabet murders, DNA testing has confirmed Naso's DNA is not a match to the semen samples recovered from the body of Wanda Walkowicz. Naso was brought to trial on the 18th of June, 2013, charged with the murder of the 4 California Alphabet murder victims. He was unanimously convicted of each murder on the 20th of August. On the 22nd of November, 2013, Naso was formally sentenced to death. Aftermath. In 1995, the mother of Carmen Colón made her first public statement regarding the murder of her daughter. In this interview, granted to Democrat and Chronicle reporter Jack Jones, Guillermina Colón stated that although she had lived her entire life in poverty, if she could have only one thing before her own death, it would not be wealth, but knowing who had murdered her daughter, adding, "If I could die knowing who killed my Carmencita, I could die more peacefully than I have lived. It is the only thing I want in my life, to know that this person had to pay for the terrible things he did to my little girl. If the person who did this could have any compassion, he would see the pain and suffering the families of these little girls have gone through for all this time. The Democrat and Chronicle newspaper published a series of articles focusing upon the ongoing police investigation into the Alphabet murders in 2009, appealing for public information with view to closing the case. These articles resulted in the Rochester Police Department receiving approximately 20 new leads of inquiry. Although all leads received were pursued, none resulted in the apprehension and conviction of the perpetrators. Nonetheless, a police spokesman has stated the Rochester Police Department remains committed to solving the case.